Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Amanda and today I'm going to be doing a May wrap up of all the books I read this month. Let's get to it. This month I participated in 2 readathons. The first one was the Christian Nonfiction Readathon that's put on by Krista over at Books and Jams. And it is, I believe, a book every quarter. And this quarter, the book was The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. And then the other readathon that I did was the Southern Charm Readathon put on by Amanda at Book Lover Amanda. So I will start with the Christian nonfiction and then we'll get into the Southern Charm Readathon. So I'm going to start with The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. I love this book. This book is a nonfiction autobiography. It tells the life story of Corrie ten Boom, who was a Christian woman living in Holland when the Nazis invaded Holland. Her family sheltered probably hundreds of Jewish people during that time and or found them places of safety. I think it's a super important read. I think everyone should read it, Christian or not. I found so much wisdom in this book. You know, a lot of the things in this book are historical, and so we kind of know what happened in World War II, right? We know the general story of what happened to people then and how awful it was. But in this particular story, I found wisdom for parenting. For example, there's a story in here where Corrie is kind of asking her, as a young girl, is asking her dad about some sex ed stuff, and her dad, I think wisely, tells her that the information that she wants, it's just too heavy for her to carry, and so he's going to carry it for her until she is old enough to carry it herself, which I loved. You know, having a child approaching puberty, I think that is so wise. That's just one example. I learned so much from this book that is not even necessarily Christian information, right? Like, you can learn from this book whether you are Christian or not, and I think that that's really important. But also, if you are a Christian or are curious about Christianity, this book is awesome. It has so many like God moments in it that were super powerful for me, and I will carry a lot of those things for the rest of my life. And this is one that I will have on my shelf forever, and I will read to my kids, with my kids one day. 5 stars all the way. Now to get into the books that I read for the Southern Charm Readathon. I have tried to put these books in order of how I liked them, so I'm going to start with the one I like the least and then go up to the one I like the most. I've tried to rate them with star ratings. I don't know, this is like the first time I've rated books with stars, but it was helpful to put them in order. There were a lot of really good books that I read this month. It was hard to put them in order, especially when I got towards the top of that list. So I will start with Summer of a Thousand Pies by Margaret Dillaway, and this was for the prompt with something sweet on the cover. I think it was sweet tea, so something sweet on the cover. It says pie on the cover. This book follows Katie, who is living with her dad. He is suffering from addiction, and she ends up going to live with her aunt in a small town, and her aunt owns a pie shop. Katie starts to become involved in her aunt's life and her business. She makes some friends, and she learns more about her mother and her grandparents, and I really enjoyed the relationship that Katie develops with her aunt. I thought that was really well done. I think when it comes to middle grade, there are some middle grade books that adults can read and really enjoy and really get into and love. Then there are other middle grade books that may be better left to the audience they're written for. And I think maybe this one would be best suited for kids in that middle grade age range. I liked it. I gave it 3.5 stars. it's a good story, it's cute, it's sweet, but it does lack something for me. The next book I read in May is called The Bromance Book Club by Lisa K. Adams. This one I did for the Hot as Blue Blazes prompt because it's set in Nashville in the summertime. So this follows Gavin, who is a professional baseball player who finds out that his wife is keeping a secret from him, and they end up separating. His baseball buddies and I guess other like prominent men in Nashville kind of come to his rescue, and they have this thing called the Romance Book Club where they read romance novels and then kind of use that information to help men who are in struggling relationships to learn better ways to interact with the women in their lives. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I really like the concept, the idea behind it, and I would probably read more in the series. But it is quite spicy, and I thought maybe a little bit unnecessarily spicy in some parts. I thought it was maybe a little bit excessive for what the book needed, but I did really like the concept, and I like the characters. Gavin and Thea is his wife. I like the storyline. I just thought that it was maybe a bit too spicy for my liking. So the next book I read was Tom Lake by Ann Patchett, and this was for the prompt, Howdy Partner, a book featuring friendship or family. Ann Patchett is, I think, kind of known for her relationship character building. This book is definitely really character driven. It's done very well. This book follows a family that lives in, I think, northern Michigan. It takes place during the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. They own a cherry orchard farm, and a lot of their workers, their seasonal workers that come to work for them are not there due to the pandemic, and the family is all together. So it's Laura, her husband Joe, and their 3 daughters. The kind of whole premise of the story is they're gathered on the farm. Laura, at one point, and before she was married to her current husband, was in a relationship with a man who eventually went on to become a movie star, and she's kind of telling her daughters the story of her life at that time and her relationship with this man, because they are just really intrigued and want to know more about that relationship and that time in their mom's life. I thought it was really well done. I really liked the development of the characters. I listened to this on audio read by Meryl Streep, which was pretty cool. It's not my favorite Ann Patchett. I gave it 4 stars. I still think The Dutch House is probably my favorite Ann Patchett. I thought the story was really, really intriguing, and I really liked it. The next book that I'm going to talk about is The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentle. This one I read for the Heavens to Betsy prompt, a mystery or thriller. So it's a story in a story. So the one storyline follows an author who is at a library with some strangers, and they're kind of all sitting at a table, and they hear a woman scream, and so they develop relationships and get to know each other. There's a little bit of a romance mixed in. That's really all I could say about that part without giving away too much. And then the other storyline is the author writing this book is like sharing the story with a beta tester as she writes to get input on the setting, which is Boston. The writer is Australian, so she's getting input from someone who lives there, and that's super interesting as well. I really don't want to give anything away. I love this book. It's a whodunit mystery thrillery vibe. It was really fun to read, really propulsive. I really loved it. I would recommend this book if you like that kind of story. The next book I chose was for the Bless Your Heart prompt, an emotional or heartwarming book. And I chose The Kiss Quotient. This is a romance, and it was definitely heartwarming for me. It follows Stella, who is an autistic woman, and she hires an escort, Michael, to learn kind of how to be in a romantic relationship. It was heartwarming for me because I loved seeing Stella kind of come into her own through the process of her being with Michael. I think she learned a lot about herself in the process. I love the autistic representation in this. I think there's not enough of it, especially for autistic women. I loved reading this. I love their story. It is spicy, for sure, but I didn't feel like it was out of place, and I didn't feel like it was too much. I feel like that's kind of the premise of the story, and it fit in for me. I really love the characters. I wish there was more and more and more about Stella and Michael. The next book I read was When the Day Comes by Gabrielle Meyer. And this was for All the Fixins, a book in multiple genres. So this book is a historical fiction romance. I really like this book a lot. This book follows Libby. She's what they call I think it's a time crosser. She is living in 2 different times. So she alternates waking up in 2 different times. One is 1774 colonial Williamsburg, and the other is the 1914 Gilded Age in New York City. In her 1774 life, she is a public printer supporting the cause of the Patriots. And then in her 1914 life, she is a member of a wealthier family, and she's dealing with a mother that is overbearing, for sure. I really love the way that the author combines the time travel with the history, with the romance. So well done. I think very well written. I cannot wait to read the rest of this series. If you watch Amanda at Book Lover Amanda, she is reading more in this. She's farther along in the series, and she has a video where she talks about the next couple. I think it's like maybe 2 books on in the series or something, and the way that she talks about the book is just, I mean, she shares her raw reaction, and she's just like crying, and is very emotional. I just really loved it. It drew me in, it had me hooked, and I will definitely be reading more in this series. The next book I read is Heroic Measures by Jill Cement. This was for the prompt, Hey Y'all, a book with more than one point of view. This book follows a couple, Alex and Ruth. They're an elderly couple living in New York City who are trying to sell their apartment. At the same time they're trying to sell their apartment, there is a potential terrorist who crashes a gasoline truck into a tunnel in New York City. And at the same time, their dog Dorothy, who is a dachshund, needs to have back surgery. She has a ruptured disc and is paralyzed. So this is all happening within like a Friday to Sunday, Monday morning time frame. I love this book. The way it is so well written, I think you can feel the anxiety and the chaos that this couple is experiencing with all that they have going on. And, you know, it kind of looks at, maybe pokes fun a little bit at the, at real estate, kind of the anxiety with real estate and the media in America. You kind of laugh out loud at the ridiculousness of those 2 things being portrayed in this book. But yet also, if you've ever sold a house or a property, or if you've ever been alive when there's been some kind of big news story, you can relate to everything that's going on. My favorite part of this book is the couple's relationship and the relationship they have with their dog. You hear from point of view of both the man and the woman in the couple, and also from the dog. I loved it. I love the characters. I wish there was more. I think this is a really fun and engaging read that made me think and made me just fall in love with all of the characters. 5 stars all the way. All right, the last book I read for the Southern Charm Readathon was The Girl in His Shadow by Audrey Blake. This one I did for Chicken and Dumplings, a book you think will be a comfort read, and it was. This book is historical fiction. It is set in the 1840s. Nora, the main character, she has been living with this surgeon in London since she was a child, and she has learned from him, you know, her whole life, and just has really taken to the medical field, and is kind of secretly practicing some with him in his practice. At the time, women were not allowed to practice medicine, so she's being a bit sneaky in that way. There's a little bit of a romance in here, but it doesn't take over the story for sure. I loved this book. It is 5 stars for me. It's really well written. I listened to it on audio that was also really well done. I fell in love with this character. There's another book after this one. I think it's called The Surgeon's Daughter. I'll be reading that ASAP. I love her character. She is strong. She is emotionally strong. The stuff that she had to go through in her life, it's just amazing who she has come to be. And she is so smart and so dedicated to the patients and doing what is best for them. The world needs more of that. The medical field needs more of that. And as a former nurse, I loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Can't wait to read more. Okay, so those are all the books that I read in May. I would love to know in the comments if you've read any of those and what you thought, or if there are any that you are going to be adding to your TBR after watching. So for the kindness moment today, I'm going to share a quote with y'all. And it says, "A part of kindness consists in loving people more than they deserve." And that was by Joseph Joubert. I think that it's often the people that look like from the outside that maybe they don't deserve our kindness or our love or attention. People that seem rough around the edges or unapproachable or like they don't really care about your kindness. Those are the ones that most often need it the most, and are the ones that we should probably actually be seeking out to shower them with our kindness, because it's going to make the most difference to them. You can never go wrong by lavishing kindness on people, whether you think that they deserve that or not. So on that note, go out there and be kind to someone today, y'all.